That is the ultimate. Now we have very complex gadgets, hundreds of, thousands of ICs, thousands of small thin wires running around, all electronic, modern day electronic gadgets. But ultimate aim is with how much easiness or with how much simplicity we can produce something, or we can maintain something. That is our ultimate goal. And what we can give back to our society, once we become capable of doing something, then how we can benefit our society, our community, the people. So that is the ultimate aim. That is what I have learned, in my journey, in my professional journey of 34, 35 years. So this is what, because at the end of the day, once we feel that we have achieved enough, then it is something, what we can give back to our society. So this is something which has brought you here. Really, you are here because you feel that you have to give back something to your people, to your society, to your students, to this place where this institution is located. So this is what has, ultimately forced you to come here and interact with our young students and give them a piece of advice. And this is what has brought me here. So I stay on campus only, hardly 200 meters from this hall. So for me, it's nothing. It's just like coming, taking a stroll and coming to the institution. But for you, it is good. It's great that you have agreed to come here and you have agreed to interact with our students. And I'm sure that this interaction will be very useful for our young students. They will learn something good in their life, which will professionally, which will help them, and definitely will motivate them not only do something for their professional career, but also to do something for the society for them. So these words, I'm once again grateful to you for sparing your time and coming and interacting with our students. Now I feel that the number of students is very less. Should have been more students. Final year BTech students, you could have contacted and they should have come. Actually, it's always good to listen to the success stories, and it's always good to get some motivation from others. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. You very well put it, right? And it doesn't really matter, even if there are a few students here. Next time we'll have more, then we'll have more, then we'll have more. They say एक शेर है ना, मेरे को पूरा नहीं आता शेर शायरी में उतना मैं शौकीन नहीं, but कारवां मिलता गया, कारवां बढ़ते गए. So I'm sure things will continue to progress. I want to take a few cues from what you mentioned, and you rightly quoted Mahatma with regards to simplicity. My favorite and my inspiration has always been APJ Abdul Kalam. I do not know how many of you guys have read his biography, but if you do read his biography, that man, when he died, he had a few pair of hands, had a few pair of shirts, but he had dozens of PhDs, dozens of degrees, and hundreds of books that he had written and that he had read. He was a very firm believer, and over the course, if you read all of his books, what he addressed in those books was all about, and what he loved doing was about his engagement with the youth. He always used to believe that the power of the youth to bring about the social change and the social transformation in our country is phenomenal. Right? And he had coined a few words about peace and harmony. You also mentioned about simplicity. You also mentioned about giving back to the people. And he very well coined it, saying that if there is peace and harmony in your heart, there's a peace and harmony in your home. If there is a peace and harmony in your home, there's peace and harmony in your society. If there's peace and harmony in your society, there's peace and harmony in your nation. And if there is peace and harmony in your nation is on the path to prosperity. Very, very brilliantly said words. But anyways, let's take a step back. First of all, congratulations to NIT and the entire leadership team at NIT for inducting the MBA program. It's my understanding, now I may be wrong over here, that this is a program that has recently been introduced in NIT. When you used to look at NIT, and I've been here, born and brought up here. मैंने ये गली जो है ना बाहर NIT के रोड की, मेरे ख्याल से मैं दिन में इसमें 5 चक्कर लगाता हूँ. Not because I had to do anything with the university, but a very, very close friend of mine used to live just behind it, and I've spent a lot of my time in this Nagin area. And aate jate, I used to always see NIT and NIT का board. And I'm talking about आज से 18 साल पहले जब मैं school में पढ़ा. I did my schooling from Burn Hall and from Bisco. And I always had this perception. I always had this perception about NIT as being, recognized as the flag bearer of engineering and technology when it comes to state. And when I progressed in my career in the last 18 or so years, I met a lot of people. I met a lot of people and a lot of brilliant, and this is the interesting part, a lot of brilliant, successful people that actually passed out from NIT. A very, very close friend of mine, he now runs his own entrepreneurship venture over the last couple of years. But he used to be the person who actually bought Supermax to life as a brand. He was the CEO for Supermax for many years, and he was an NIT pass out as well. So all I'm trying to say is that this institute has delivered some phenomenal talent out there. People who have contributed to their own journey and people who continue to contribute towards the society. With the introduction of the MBA program at NIT, I think it will continue to kind of spearhead and establish the same reputation over the next coming couple of years. I want to tell you guys a little bit about myself. Though you heard probably from Dr. Saab here as well as them that a brief about me. When I was in school, those were tough. Those were tough times. 20 years ago, they were tough times. Right? Not just from the prevailing circumstances perspective, but we did not have what you guys have. I sometimes feel that you guys are extremely lucky than what we were. Because going back to the fact that data, which has become so critical, the access to that for you guys is phenomenally and far more superior than what we had in our day. It's very difficult to basically gather data around your areas of interest. But when you look at things right now, it's a lot more easier. So I went through exactly the same scenario, which any other student at that point in time would have had. But one thing that always used to bother my mind was how do I make a difference for myself? Right? I was an average student when I started, but there were a couple of things that I was very, very passionate about. And one of those things that I was extremely passionate about is trying and understanding how various cultures impact the behavior of leaders. And that's just from day one. This is something which was so close to me. I always wanted to understand. I always used to read about global leaders, and you continue to read about those global leaders, and you realize how successful those global leaders have been. And that actually brought me on a path that I decided that if I want to do something, I want to do something that allows me to understand the cultures in various geographies. when I started my journey, started working for one company, the other company, in the back of my mind, I always had this objective that I want to do something in that space. And that's when I decided that I will eventually go and choose a line of academia which is related to international business. And that's when I started to pursue my master's in international business and so on and so forth. And I started engaging myself in conversations and dialogues which allow me to understand that. That's what got me into the role, right? So over the last 14, 15 odd years, I've been running businesses, building businesses in Africa, in Middle East, in India, in Southeast Asia, and practically spend months, living in almost every emerging market that you talk about, whether it is Kenya, whether it is Botswana, whether it is South Africa, whether it is Philippines, whether it is Vietnam, and of course India. And that actually made me understand that how critical and important the cultural impact for leaders is. That became my passion, and that is something that I continue to chase from day one. Right? The MBA programs that are out there, and one of the things that when Dr. Tahir reached out to me, and I found that to be a very, very interesting thought process that you have you were actually driving towards, is to look at how people who've been out there and gone through various various circumstances or various in-life experiences can help impact the course of the academy, right? And bring forward the opportunities that exist out there for the people. Shifting gears, right? We talked about myself a little bit. I'll leave the last 10, 15 minutes. I really like my engagements to be, or my discussions to be very engaging. So I'll throw the floor open for any open-air questions that you have. I'd love to answer that. I'd love to kind of navigate the discussions around the various subjects. We talked about data. I talked about data, right? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The way I visualize the next couple of decades to turn out, it is phenomenal what this data is going to do, right? Somebody coined and said just around a couple of months ago, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, the data is the new oil. And indeed, data is the new oil. The days of fossil fuels are gone, right? When you look at data and what data can do in order to bring about that change is simply phenomenal, right? And look at it this way. You look at, how many zettabytes of data did we create in the last 1 year during the pandemic? Any wild guesses? No? 56 zettabytes of data. And we did not create, consumers, businesses did not create that kind of data that they created in the last 1 year over the last 20 years. So the digitization that came in because of the pandemic, you realize that all of us became so dependent on the data that is being created around us. Now imagine that at this point in time, we are only analyzing 1%, less than 1% of that data for the larger good. When I talk about larger good, you talk about global warming, right? How many of you guys believe in global warming? Oh, right. I'm glad that we're on the same page over here. Makes it very interesting, right? So it's a serious problem, right? How many of you guys believe in water scarcity? It's going to be a bigger problem. We're actually going to talk about. You talked about wars being fought around data and so on and so forth, right? These natural resource scarcities are actually going to lead us into a push our back towards the corner, because water scarcity is going to be for real. What are we doing right now regarding that? We're not analyzing the data that we should be. Hunger, right? Another big problem that the world is facing. You look at Africa, right? I spent a lot of time in Africa. I've seen it. I've practically seen it with my own eyes. What famines have done, what hunger has done, and what kind of social impact it creates on society. Unbelievable. Right? And what are we doing about it? We're not doing a lot about it. And imagine the potential that could be out there when we look at people engaging in those areas to bring about that change. Right? look at pandemic as we are going through right now, and I'm sure you all would agree with me that countries which have actually analyzed the data around the pandemic a lot more better than the countries who have not, have been a lot more successful in tackling that, have been successful in impacting their people in a much more positive direction, and they've analyzed data. Organizations, look at organizations at this point in time. A success of an organization is now not driven just around what it produces and what it sells, but it's also driven around how they are able to understand the psychology of their customers, how they're able to analyze the data that they're gathering from their customers in order to prepare products or bring to life products that their customers want. And they are able to predict that. Right? You look at organizations who are very successful right now, they analyze that data. Amazon. Right? How many of you guys know that Amazon does not make any money when it comes to their Amazon.com platform? Amazon doesn't make money on that platform. But you know where Amazon does make money? Is a phenomenal amount of data that it collects from consumers like you and me, our buying behavior, our needs, right? And then Amazon has built their capacity of millions and millions of terabytes of data centers, which are called AWS, the Amazon Web Services, right? And that's what they continue to make phenomenal amount of money. So undoubtedly, data is definitely the new oil. And what organization and what students and what the academia can do is to make sure that we continue to emphasize the importance of this data that is out there, right? And the opportunities it creates. Look at data sciences right now. Data sciences is going to be the next big thing. How do we make sure that we prepare our MBA students, right? That when they complete their MBA and walk into an organization, right, they are able to freely talk about what data sciences and the impact of data sciences can bring into the organizations. Eventually, you look at AI, you look at machine learning, you look at all those aspects that are coming up right now, they will be fueled by data. There is nothing else that is going to fuel them. There is no fossil fuel that is going to fuel AI. There's no fossil fuel that is going to fuel machine learning. If there is a fuel that is going to fuel any of those concepts, is the data. So data analytics is going to be a very critical thing for all the students to be cognizant of. Right? Shifting gears once again, right? As a management graduate, I think what is, in my opinion, and the fact that I've worked with large organizations, besides working with large organizations, one of the things that I do is I do work a lot with startups. I do fund a lot of startups in my own capacity or in a larger capacity. Startups predominantly who are in the field of bringing about certain kind of transformations. Right? It could be technological transformations. It could be transformations from design aspect, transformations from healthcare aspect. Right? And one of the things that I do realize is the least amount of emphasis that we continue to have on developing the skills which are critical for students to get acclimatized to the environment out there in the corporate world. And I'm not talking about those skills related to what I just talked about, which is data science and anything and everything that you study, but it's about soft skills. Soft skills are very important when you get into organizations. And I realize the success of an organization is driven around, it's no more a world wherein one person can change the course of history. I don't think that exists anymore. The power of collaboration is something that has to be inculcated in everyone, in all our, not only in our course subject, but also within the students. The power of collaboration is something that we should consistently bring in to the forefront. I believe that allows us to ensure that we are able to identify the critical stakeholders in the organization and get them to work together. Only when you work together, you're able to deliver some phenomenal results. I'm going to tell you about a story that practically happened in the real life, and I'll try to move to the last section of our chat. We announced a couple of in our organization. We announced the teams have been working on something phenomenal for the last couple of years. Right? It was our Microsd, the Microsd card. We announced the world's first 1 terabyte Microsd card a couple of quarters ago, and it was designed and it was conceptualized in India by our research and development team based out of Bangalore. Right? The world's first high-capacity Microsd card, a 1 terabyte. Right? Can you imagine the kind of data that all of you guys are creating? Right? What a product like that can do. And during that process, we went through a lot of challenges. Right? To design to conceptualize and bring it to life, it took not one person. It took close to around 500 people plus in that whole ecosystem. From engineers, from planners, from designers, to people like us who eventually, take that product to the customer and say, look what we have done. Look, not what we have done, but look what our team has done, right? And look what it solves for you as a problem. Since we announced the product, I have had a lot of people, and I'm in awe with what the students in Kashmir and people in Kashmir are doing, right? I mean, you look at a lot of bloggers who are out there right now, creating a lot of phenomenal content, trying to bring forward the beauty that Kashmir has in front of millions and millions of people. And I get reached out by a lot of these people saying that, hey, I create so much content. What am I going to do? What should I do? What product should I go for? And we try to basically help them out as much as we can. Right? The opportunity that exists in this place is no less than what exists anywhere out there in the world. There are opportunities for brilliant startups to emerge from here. There are opportunities. Never underestimate the fact. I never underestimated the fact. Right? Never underestimate the fact that what can be done outside cannot be done here. That's one thing that I always struggle to have a conversation when I talk to students, that you talk about the fact that, hey, I have these challenges, I have those challenges, I have multiple challenges. Yes, absolutely. There are probably set of challenges which are more apt here than outside, but you have the capabilities of overcoming any of those challenges. As long as you have the passion, as long as you have the determination to chase what you believe that you want to do, I think you guys can bring about to life anything that you ever want to do. So keep that in mind. I'd love to, share more and more of incidents over the course of the next couple of weeks, months, whenever we chat, whenever we get an opportunity to discuss. But at this point in time, I'd love to throw the floor out and get you guys to ask me anything. I think I'm more apt and more better in engaging in conversations which are two-way.
So, in your first interview, you discussed about that the data collection in India. Can you explain it? How you observed it? What you observed in India regarding data collection? As we know, India is way more and way far back in kind of a knowledge, but other countries are using that knowledge, but India is far back in using its own knowledge. So I just want to say, how bad do you feel like India is currently working on data collection, data storage? As we know, China, America, Russia, every country, superpowers are working on collecting data from other countries wherever where from they want to gather it. Can you a little bit put an insight that how India is working on this?
Oh, you'll be surprised how the last couple of years have changed all of that, right? With the data retention policies that the government has introduced, and they continue to bring forth, the importance around what is our data, and we need to make sure that we analyze that data is being, look at the UADI, right? The data that gets collected over there. Look at the banking sector. You look at your healthcare sector. There's a sea of change, and you're absolutely right. We probably were a little late to the game, but the way things have progressed over the last couple of years, I think there's a lot more importance that we, as a nation, are giving to data than what we were in the past, and that is very critical for us in the near future. When you also look at from consumer perspective, up until a couple of years, the data was not very important, and I think it's a phenomena that we notice a lot. Most of the time, you start realizing how important your data was or data is when you lose it. How many times you guys have lost your data?
Yes.
Isn't it painful?
Yes.
Right? And it has happened to me as well, so I'm not immune to it. Right? But I learned my lesson a lot more earlier than probably you guys, right? Now, a lot of us at that point in time, we were not very conscious about what the importance of the data was, right? And when you start losing that data, you go like, oh my God, what do I do now? Right? My theses are on there, my subjects are there, everything. I mean, digitization has made sure that everything that I need is in that digital form. And if I'm not cognizant, or if I'm not paying attention to it, and I lose it, it creates a lot more challenges for us. And it's similar to the organizations as well. I think I feel that change has already started, and it has started, and it is going at a very, very rapid pace, wherein we as a nation are paying a lot more importance to our data than what we were a few years ago, right? And a lot of this data will continue to be utilized in the future to make those changes and those social transformations that I talked about. But you're absolutely right. Your observation is absolutely right? I mean, we were a little complacent up until a few years ago.
So one more question I have that we collect the data. So, but the protection of data is a way more getting complex now. We have firewalls and other things, the data sources. The government has its own data sources, and they have different type of how we can relate that the importance, because if we are collecting more and more data, the protection of data should also be kind of backup systems and other things.
Oh, yeah.
That should be also a kind of a new emerging things. Anything that you have observed, as we know, Western Digital is known for many of these things. So anything that that India is progressing over that, because we know a lot of things that has happened back then, gives in and all that. On the data sources India is collecting on through banks or whatever. So, because so what you have seen through your experience till date, that India is progressing on protecting the data sources, building firewalls or something like that.
Interestingly enough, while you might have heard a lot about from social media, from news about data breaches that have happened at the global level, I'm not going to get into names, but I don't think I personally have heard any localized data breaches that have happened in the country so far. Right? So, and you're right. Data protection is as important as data collection. In fact, it's more important than data collection. Right? I mean, the privacy of data and the laws around that privacy have to be a lot more secure than about the fact that you're collecting that raw data and what you're utilizing that raw data for. Right? And the way technology has emerged, the way data centers are being built right now, and the layers of security that is getting added makes sure that the data and the security of that data is the prime importance for any agency or any entity that is in the process of collecting that data. Right? When you look at a data center, the cost for data centers is broken down, right? And you realize that one of the biggest costs for data centers when you build data centers is actually to keep those data centers cool. You know that? Electricity, right? When those data centers are built, you're talking about hundreds and thousands of servers that are lined up in a farm, in a server farm, right? And these have hundreds and thousands of hard drives or SSDs which are rotating at 10,000 RPM. Now you can imagine what kind of heat those devices are creating. So you must have recently heard that Microsoft tested a couple of years having a data center deep into the ocean, wherein the temperature levels were significantly lower, right? And they were able to successfully retrieve data back and forth from that data center. In fact, just a couple of months ago, they kind of bought that data center out for cleaning purposes, right? And all I'm trying to say is, from cost perspective, while that becomes a critical cost for a data center, security is a very, very critical cost for data centers, right? And if you don't have the layers of security that are built on data centers, you'll always have these challenges that you've seen when it comes to the privacy breaches that happen in those data centers.
So, one more question. As you said that
That's okay. That's fine. No, that's fine.
as you said that we need to
I found a guy passionate about data centers.
Yeah, it's more about you said that we have to keep the atmosphere very cool where we store our servers and all that, because there's a lot of heat emergent from those servers.
Yeah.
So as we use ACs and other things nowadays are used to cooler down the environment in a room. Don't you feel like it's sometime that you said Microsoft has done to made it under deep ocean? It's a kind of eco-friendly than using ACs, and it gets more like if we are.
No, I think the best eco-friendly situation would be if we put up a data center in Kashmir. Right? We got 6 months of we got 6 months of I think very good temperature, and last year it seems like you guys had -13, -12, so can't ask for anything better than that. At least it saves you a lot of cost. You're right. You have to be conscious about it, right? I mean, you have to make sure that you're conscious about generating whatever you can generate from fossil fuel technology. I think what is emerging now is obviously how you implement the use of solar in terms of powering such things. And I think a lot of companies are doing a phenomenal job, right? You look at how dependence on petrol is significantly reducing. How you look at how companies like Tesla have revolutionized what the future of automobile industry is going to look like, right? Similarly, when you look at things which are related to data centers, which are consuming a lot of electricity, I'm sure there's a lot being done, and I know that there's a lot being done in order to power those data center with natural resources. And I would love to see a data center. By the way, that brings to my mind, I'd love to see a data center in India. Why not? Why not?
So that can be done. It's not.
Of course, it can.
It can be.
There's absolutely no ways it can't be done, and I think we have we've got the right skill sets, right? And I think there's a very, very talented engineering skill sets that we have within the country, within Jammu and Kashmir.
A lot of things can be done.
So we have to be some CSE and IT students here as well. And I think they always wonder what are the skills that they need before going for placements. Whether some soft skills or IT skills. Because you are in an IT industry from last, I guess, 15 years now or more than that. So what are the tips for the students, CSE, IT? The skills that they need.
In my opinion, when you're in the management or the operations part of the business, or when you're in the core technology deployment, delivery, rollout kind of a segment within the business, while you do have certain skill sets which are apt to be used in that space, in my opinion, there are skill sets that cut across all of these segments. And I genuinely believe that there used to be a time that we used to pay a lot of emphasis on EQ. A lot of emphasis used to be paid on EQ. I believe that in future, leaders will have to consistently pay a lot of emphasis on EI, emotional intelligence. Right? Emotional intelligence defines and helps you build the character that you need as a leader. We're talking about empathy. We talked about collaboration. Right? These are soft skills. These are skills that allow me to engage. I might not have the skill sets to design or deploy a data center, but if I have the right soft skill sets that I possess in terms of collaboration, in terms of empathy, to be a good leader, I can work with you and we can work together as a team for the larger good of deploying something, right? I think it's important for all of us to believe that our skills are only as good as the skills of the other person. You cannot possess every skill out there that is needed for an organization to be successful. Unless I, as a leader, am able to identify your skills and build them together and use them for the success of the organization, I believe I will not be on a path to delivering on a larger good or a phenomenal growth opportunity that could exist for me and my organization. So I think those are areas, and I think it's a very, very elaborate subject to talk about when you talk about EI, when you talk about those soft skills. What are the soft skills that we need to make sure that we are helping organize our students to look into? Is probably a segment in its own. But I can assure you that when you go out in the real world, now in the real world, for engineers, if we are looking at what are the technical qualifications that you possess in order to design an ASIC memory or design a chip module, we also look at what are your thoughts around passion? What are your thoughts around collaboration? Right? What are your thoughts around empathy? How can you make sure that you utilize those soft skills to get the larger team to work together?
Yeah, first you have to be a good human being.
First, you have to be a good human being, and I think you rightly mentioned when you were saying, right, and when you are able to do that, that is when you basically think for the larger good, right? That's when you think that, hey, you know what, I want to do this because not only does it make me successful, but it also makes somebody else successful.
There's one confusion. Nowadays, various companies are giving the like storage data embedded in mobile phones or laptops. So, is there any demand coming like from the people for the SD card? Because even various companies are building the SD card, the bigger storage and all. Is really coming?
Oh yeah. So I'll tell you, a very interesting question that you put, right? While you see the capabilities of devices, right? And when you look at the capability of a device, right? Earlier, your device was a 6, 18, or 16, 32 gig smartphone, and now you have a 64 gig, 128, 256, 512 gig smartphones that are also coming out. I'm just picking up smartphones, right? Because smartphone happens to be the lowest hanging fruit from a content creation perspective. But you also realize there is another shift that is happening. With these devices coming in, the capabilities of these devices is far more superior what it was, right? That gentleman is taking that video. By the end of this, if he's shooting on a 4K, I bet you that his file size is going to be not less than 400, 500, right? You realize that the capabilities of devices is getting far more higher, right? While it might have slowed down the adoption of certain additional storage requirements for let's say 2, 4, or 6 months, but we consistently see a significant demand out there for storage devices, right? I mean, you look at as I said, right? I mean, you look at the next coming couple of years, the world is going to have 56 to 60 zettabytes of data that gets created. I don't even know how many zeros are there in that zettabyte, to be honest with you. That's how massive that the data creation is going to be like. And a lot of this content is very redundant, right? And I'm sure, right, we've done a lot of behavior analysis on this. A lot of data that we get, it's very redundant. We just don't want to let go of it, right? We are
doing it. Normally, when we click a photograph, we click at least 20 to 30.
Yeah.
One of those 20, 30 will be good. Rest all is that is all redundant data.
Exactly. Not only that, we are a part of so many of these WhatsApp chat groups, right? With friends, with family, and a lot of data comes there. We just want to get rid of it, right? We just want to keep it for maybe a laugh later down the memory lane or whatever it is, right? So data, and some of the data is also very useful, right? Some of the data that we consistently keep on communicating and recommunicating also helps us. You talk about a lot of these phenomenal talks that people make. Right? A lot of people love keeping that data. So I don't think that that it has impacted anyways the demand for storage to an extent.
My question is about WD itself. So with the admitted increase of cloud computing and cloud storage, do you feel that the shift for WD will go from B2C to B2B?
Well, just for you to know, Western, and again, this is, and I hear this from our leadership team, from our CEO, very, very often, and it's something that he keeps on telling us. He said that, look, when you look at Western Digital as an organization, don't just look at Western Digital in terms of the products that you bring out, but you have a larger impact on the globe at a global level. 50%, up to 50% of world's data passes through our devices, whether it is in your phone, whether it is in your servers, whether it is in your laptops, whether it is in the supercomputers which are churning data at a lightning speed, whether it is in aircrafts, whether it is in your automobiles, in the form of either a chip or an SSD or a hard drive. Western Digital is actually a part of all of these segments. 50% of world's data is a huge responsibility that we have as an organization, right? Whether the data is shifting from consumer to business or business to consumer, as Western Digital, we basically do fulfill the needs of all those segments. So particularly for us, it doesn't really make much of a difference, right? I mean, even if the data is sitting on a cloud, right? But what we do notice is, while the data migration into cloud has accelerated over the last couple of years, and rightly so, it should be as well, because it gives you a lot more faster access to that data. We also do realize that the personal data in the personal capacity, consumers continue to make sure that they're holding it close to them. So yeah, it really doesn't make much of a difference.
Do you have any requirement through placements, campus placements?
He's our training and placement officer.
I was hoping that question should come. That question should have come in a lot more earlier. Yes, definitely. Every year we do a placement program, right? And every year we hire hundreds of NCGs. We call them new college graduate program. Our NCG program is a very, very robustly built program, and we induct those NCGs in every segment of our business. We induct the NCGs from B schools for our business, for our operations, for our management, for our finance roles. We also induct NCGs in our engineering platform. Right? We have close to around 3,500 engineers.
Yeah, maybe for data security.
Not only for data security is one of those aspects, but also for designing. I mean, we design, as I said, the world's first 1 terabyte Microsd. It was designed by our engineers in Bangalore. You look at our dual die plot platform. You look at a lot of technology when it comes to ASIC. You look at a lot of our technology when it comes to firmware designing. it actually happens out of our India R&D. So yes, I will. I'll be very keen on taking this discussion forward and make sure that we connect with the right set of people who are engaged in that. I think it'll be a good discussion for us to get into. Yes. To answer your question, yes.
Prabhu, you can contact him and
Yes, sir,
get
sure.
in touch with him so that we
Because in NIT we have 8 engineering programs like computer science, information technology, communication, electrical, metallurgy, material, mechanical.
Metallurgy, right? I mean, that's I know that we've got a lot of people in our R&D team within that space, because at the end of the day, you look at hard drives, it rotates a lot around magnetics and how it works. But again, I'll help facilitate that. Sorry, you had a question.
Sir, do you see in the near future a common man can be insecure about the data storage that has been done on cloud or anywhere else? Do you see a human? I mean, I wouldn't want Amazon to know what I'm purchasing, and they'll know my personality because of that. So, can that be done? Is there any prevention of that? Do you see there can be an insecurity about data storage?
Data storage has its perils. Right? Data has. I mean, it's an interesting debate to get into. The pros and cons of this data, and trust me that could itself trigger a debate around the thought process. Yes and a no. Yes and a no. Right?
In fact, in this age, I would like to comment. There is no place to hide.
Yeah, that's true.
Wherever you go, you are under observation. You are under surveillance.
But sir, even, I agree with her. Actually, see, what happened is we even say like a Flipkart, Amazon, whatever we see, the Google will start tracking us. Like whenever we search anything about anything, just we saw the advertisement. Like you're searching for.
Yeah, targeting. Look, that's what I mentioned when I said, you look at Amazon, you look at any of these companies, right? If you buy from Amazon because probably it's offering you the best value for money, but Amazon has to make money somewhere as well, right? Or any of those platforms have to make money somewhere, right? And they would probably want to make money with the fact that, hey, I have XYZ who's buying from me. Let's say I might buy a desk, right? And the algorithms, the machine learning will identify with the fact that you bought this desk, but the dynamics of this desk means that you probably only will have a chair which is so and so, which is going to fit in. And the machines then basically, crunch those algorithms and say, oh, you know what? She bought this desk. She only has 2 options to buy a chair that fits aesthetically well on there, and that's what it throws you. And it shows you an advertisement. You just goes back to the advertiser and say, this is the customer who you might want to sell, right? Well, so far so good, right? I don't think that basically has a serious impact on us. But yes, right? I think this whole thing has to boil down to your self-consciousness, your self-belief in terms of what you think is the data that you want about you to be out there, right? For example, your browsing history can also define your personality, the kind of books you read on, the kind of the kind of people you follow, the kind of people you look up to, the kind of people you interact with, right? And you rightly said, right? I mean, there's no place to hide, right?
Yeah.
I think we're out there, and we have to accept the fact that that's how it is. The more we use that in our advantage, the more better it is. Hence, I have a very I have a personal rule that I created for myself. Right? When you are in an open source platform like what is out there, you have to be conscious about what you share and what you don't share. As long as you put those checks and balances in place, I think you should be okay. Any other questions?
So, as we know, that as you are in a sales department, and the marketing techniques are changing right now.
Oh, yeah.
And from even after pandemic, it's rapidly changing from field to digitalized. Yeah, and I feel like I have seen in a feed that WD has been awarded for best emerging technology used in
Digital marketing.
digital marketing.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how actually do you feel like, because we have MSMEs also? Okay. So, how do you feel like it's more impactful because big companies use algorithms, data science to track their customers. So, how do you feel that if there is not we are not going in a field now? So, how interactive and effective it can be on a customer? That to be, because it's all machines are working on it.
So, two basic rules around it that we created, and you're absolutely right. We got awarded for the best digital marketing campaign during the last 1 year, pan India. Customer touch and feel is very important. Right? What you can have when you were talking to your customer face to face cannot be completely replaced. Very true. Right? However, the impact that digital marketing can have in terms of you being able to reach out to your audience can also be not underplayed. The most important thing when you talk about digital marketing, and digital marketing, particularly when you look at the MBA programs, and I'm sure probably in your MBA programs you would have marketing as a subject, right? You look at marketing and you look at how marketing has changed over the last 1 year, and how it will continue to change over the next coming couple of years is going to be phenomenal. You know why we actually got awarded for that digital marketing campaign? The reason why we got awarded for that digital marketing campaign was because we decided to do something completely different. What we decided to do was not just to market our product in the digital space, but do exactly what I answered in my previous question, which is to understand the persona of a consumer. You as a consumer have a different persona. It's not going to match with the person sitting next door to you, right? Me as a brand, in order to make sure that I'm being cognizant of your persona, would try to understand your persona a little bit more as a consumer. Only when I understand your persona as a consumer, your likes, your dislikes, what could impact you, right? Emotionally, some consumers might not like what I'm actually promoting in the digital space. Because when you look at digital space, there are two things that I have a very strong personal opinion about. Emails, in my opinion, worst form of communication. And I say worst form of communication because I don't mean to say in a negative way that we should not be using it, but the fact is sometimes the person who's reading the email perceives that text in a completely different way than what you have written. Right? How many times would you have gotten to a situation that you've written an email or text to somebody with a different thought process, but the other person gets irritated with the fact that why did he or she write to me something like that? Right? And what does it do? It gives birth to conflict. Right? I always am a very, very strong proponent of picking up the phone, right? Because when you talk, you're able to express, or you're able to feel the emotions of a person slightly lot more better. But when you talk physically face to face, then you obviously know, your body language, your eye contact, your behavior basically tells you how passionate or not so passionate that conversation is. Right? Similarly, in the digital space, it cannot only be one size that fits all. That I decide to have a campaign and I go out there, blast that campaign on the loudspeakers on the internet so everybody hears it, without understanding that 10 of the 10 people in the room, all of those 10 people have completely different persona that I need to reach out to. That's what helped us achieve that milestone, right? And believe me, it took us months of research to understand those personas, right? understand the personas of our consumer, and obviously we can't actually go and address every persona. So then we ended up picking up the top 6, 7 personas and say, okay, this is how we will structure our campaigns in order to address those different personas.
So we recently had a visit to Mumbai, and there we went to Wellington Institute, and we saw a 3D printer. So we would actually request you to sponsor us and get us a sponsorship to get the 3D printer at NIT.
We have a 3D printer.
So actually that is
We have much more. We have 1 crore 3D printer.
no. So actually that is individuals. We can. Put in the
Actually,
pictures.
what I think Kisam is trying to say is that they recently visited Wellington Institute. What they have done is they have started an innovation lab, small scale innovation lab. While the students can directly go and they can.
We are also developing a tinkering lab here, and we have already purchased a small 3D printer.
Okay. So actually, we want you to sponsor us for the
Actually, they want to start an
Innovation lab.
innovation lab. So actually provide solutions to the problems at the local levels, like for farming, for agricultural, horticultural practices.
That's a brilliant idea.
To try the entrepreneurs' spirit in the students, be it management or engineering students.
That's a brilliant idea. Come up with what you want to do, right? I mean, an innovation lab practically is not just built by having the
physical facilities.
Is not built by. It's my opinion. An innovation lab has to start from a thought process, right? That if you want to start an innovation lab, and I promise you, if you guys forget about Western Digital, if you guys come up with a good innovation lab idea, which basically is able to, and don't spread it too thin, which basically is able to bring in innovation in 1 or 2 or maximum 3 areas, that we could bring about a transformation within the state. I will do it personally at my personal capacity, right? But provided it starts with a thought process, right? In my opinion, and I hope you agree with me on that, right? In my opinion, it has to come from there, right? And we don't have to think about solving everything that we want to solve, right? If there's an innovation lab, and that innovation lab would eventually mean that we then go and reach out to people who can help us engage with us. And trust me, there are so many brilliant minds out there who, even if they spend half an hour of their time in terms of nudging and guiding us in terms of what we could do, I think that innovation lab could bring in a lot of change, right? I think there's a lot. I mean, at least I keep on hearing. I'm not sure if there's anything happening or not, but I do hear that there's a lot more of youth empowerment and youth mission activities that are being engaged, right, over here in the Valley.
Because you said that you're sponsoring startups. We have a specialized cell here that is innovation entrepreneurship cell, and we have in the last few years we have been coming up with students are coming up with brilliant ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the only need is that they come up with ideas, then nobody is able to sponsor them. Last time, one of our students developed the ventilators, low cost ventilators, but then the idea stops there only. Then they don't find any. Recently, one of our students won a championship at national level at IIT Bombay, but then it stops there only.
Well, this is I gotta go back to my my comment that I said. If it stops, he or she or you are partly responsible for it stopping, because that means you were not passionate enough. I'll tell you guys a personal story. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with I had a personal issue. Like I was diagnosed with a severe autoimmune condition, which knocked the hell out of me completely for a few months. I wasn't even sure that if I am actually going to come out of it. I wasn't sure, right? There isn't probably any part in my body that was not probed by doctors. I still have scars all around the place, right?
And I felt at that point in time that probably, I was nearing the end of the beginning, right? What only kept me going on is that I felt that no, I just can't, I can't lose this battle, right? I mean, I need to make sure that I overcome this. If something stops and you're not able to take it to the next level, don't blame anyone. Blame yourself. Because that probably means you're not passionate enough to chase what you want to chase. Right? As long as you, if you keep that in your mind, I feel there is absolutely nothing that a person cannot achieve.
I think by the time that ventilator is still going, under that is still testing, animal testing, human testing. It's not so easy to market anything until or unless we have tested it for. Ventilator is one very important equipment.
Yeah, sure.
So this thing. So probably I think you don't have the complete information, but
I will just give an example that
yeah.
we do facilitate.
Yeah, we will
definitely that we help
for
students.
somebody has
Yes,
already.
I think I probably understand what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is, when we come up with those innovative ideas, we hit roadblocks, right? And I think as people who can influence 10 other people, it's important for us to make sure that we do two things. One is make sure that the person who is actually responsible for doing this, he does not lose hope in what he does. That's more important. That's the first and the foremost important. And the second important thing is, if we believe that we can help them overcome those challenges by talking to people, by talking to our network of people, by facilitating whatever we can facilitate, if he's on the right track, eventually success will happen, right? And I don't think we should ever give up, right? I think I understand what you're saying. I think you're probably saying that, look, I mean, we want to do this, but we face a lot of challenges. What do we do, right? At this
the
point
only
in time.
problem that we face is that we don't get so many private investors. So maybe it's a problem with entrepreneurs as well. They only think of government sponsorship and government funding.
I'll tell you a real life story. A friend of mine, he was the CMO of a very, very large organization, right, in India. An organization that makes one of the largest luxury collection of watches. And this gentleman was extremely passionate about sports, right? But he was a CMO, a chief marketing officer of a very large company. And sometimes what happens is, what is more important, the leap of faith. Sometimes we become so complacent, and sometimes we become so, used to living the life that we have, and it's so comfortable in that space that we always keep our passions at bay. It's like, nahi yaar, mera ye chal raha hai, main अच्छा खासा कर रहा हूँ, ये कोई करने की जरूरत नहीं है, क्या करूँ, ठीक है, ऐसे चल रहा है. And we keep on suppressing our passion. We keep on suppressing our passion to an extent that we completely exhaust that flame. And many a times it happens. He took up a leap of faith. He said, look, Khalid, I know that this is paying me phenomenally well, but this is what I want to do. Right? When he started the company 4 years ago, for the next 6 months, people were not even wanting to see him because they were not able to understand his concept. His concept was he wanted to start an app, a platform, which allows sports fans to engage with each other, right? When they're watching sports. I'm watching an IPL game, I'm watching by myself, I want to engage with people at what they think, what's going on, and so on and so forth. 6 months happened. He was going one after the other to multiple investors, trying to pitch them the idea. Nobody came in. Right? 8 months happened, 12 months happened, same frustration level, all the time high. It's like, I left something, I was doing so well. What am I going to do now? Right? And I think he probably would have met maybe around 20 odd people. And then all of a sudden he met somebody who had nothing to do with technology. Right? He was a sports fan and who happened to be in Bollywood. heard his pitch, and say, you know what, I'm going to give you 50 lakh rupees. Go and bid. Give him 50 lakh rupees, he bid. Right now, the company is the largest sports aggregator, not just in India, but in Asia Pacific, with millions and millions of followers. All your gamers, doing PUBG and this and that, and all online gaming, whatever they do, happens through that platform. So I think it's all about making sure that we consistently follow. Go back to my talk about when I said, be passionate about what you do. Be passionate about what you do. You'll always find figure a way out in order to overcome that. And yes, I think our role becomes to see what we can do to facilitate that. Right? If we are in a position to facilitate such ideas, I think as the incubation center that we talked about, as the innovation center, that is what we should do. If there are brilliant ideas, we should encourage them to continue to be on that path, and we should help them look for people who they can engage with or they can talk with. Right? Sometimes you realize some of us we build a brilliant platform, but we're not. We don't have the skill sets to sell that platform. We know what we're building is game changing, but we don't know how to position it. Right? I think that's what should be the thought around that innovation center. Right? If in your program, in the MBA program, which is a new program, if you can inculcate that and say, hey, you know what, our innovation centers, we're gonna work with startups. We'll ask them to come. We'll encourage them to come. Pitch us. Tell us what you want to do. Show us how passionate about you are about what you want to do. And if you are passionate about what you want to do, we can facilitate. We can build an ecosystem wherein we talk to people, we pitch it to people. And trust me, there are a lot of people out there. A lot of people out there. Forget about the government being a part of it, but even at the public space, the private space, a lot of people over there who are eager to look for such innovative engagements that are coming forth. Right? But as long as you set that up, I'm sure we all can work together in kind of seeing it to life.
Yeah, I think in your program you have sufficient space. You can have even one classroom can be made as a wild idea zone, where twice a week you can come and you can throw and discuss your ideas. Certain things you need a lot of discussions, a lot of open discussions.
Yes, sir. We have
So
classes for
those kind of things are.
Yeah, I agree.
All these helmets, these aerodynamic helmets, all these have all developed like that.
Yeah,
हमारे सामने ही बना है ये सब कुछ.
You're right. Absolutely. Aerodynamic helmets. It's a very good example. And, you know what? There are tons of so many stories, right? It's just that one idea that you need, right, to become a game changer. Imagine if that innovation center that you guys think about is able to, come up with that one game-changing idea. I think the MBA program is probably going to supersede the engineering capabilities of NIT as an institute. Right? So I think I would encourage all the MBA students to, consistently think on those lines. A human brain, our brain is so phenomenally, it's so powerful, right? And I think we all underestimate the power of our own capabilities. Right? As long as you have that mindset, I think the rest can be rest assured.
I have a question.
We'll go there.
You have worked in several MNCs before.
Yeah.
What made you stick to this particular company? What was the driving force? You have worked for 14 years for this company. What has made you stick to this?
12 years. Around 12 years.
Yeah.
Probably maybe I was getting old and complacent. No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. When you're in a management structure, and when you get into roles that clearly allow you the flexibility to explore your own development as a leader, right? You feel connected. You look at Western Digital. When I started with Western Digital, I was at those days I used to be based out of Dubai. I believe the passion that I had, which was back in my school days to understand the cultural impact on management. You remember I talked about it at the beginning. I felt this got me the closest to it, right? Because with Western Digital, I build the Africa business. I build the Middle East business. Right? I practically operated in multiple countries within Africa. Traveled, saw how people behave over there, how customers behave, how partners behave, how their culture is. Western Digital allowed me to explore Southeast Asia as a market, India as a market, and I've been involved in India as a market for over 8 years now. I felt so connected because it always took me back to what I always wanted to do, what I was always passionate about. Right? I think that probably kind of explains as to what kind of made me work with Western Digital for so long. I felt that not only did it help my as a person grow, but also help me fuel my passion with what I initially wanted to do. Right? Though the role became a lot more closer. And it also gave me a lot of flexibility to explore what I wanted to do. Right? And as I said, I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and I personally work a lot with students. Right? I mean, I do a lot of coaching sessions with students. I've done it in IIM. I've done it in National Institute of Technology here. I've done it in Amity across various platforms. And I've done it with many Indian Institute of Foreign Trade and a lot of other universities that I always love engaging with. Right? So I think it allowed me to explore a lot of those opportunities also. I think that's probably it. I just feel connected to it. That's all.
So I was just thinking of how do you feel of combination of engineering and MBA? Because if I would even like to tell like this, if it would be more like it's just like we sometimes feel like we are MBA and we are just like we are so different. We just wanted, as we saw in Bilinker, that they have an engineering fields also. They combinedly work together. They come up with something different that engineering come up with, and they managers as a managing skills, they market it. They come up with something different. They come up with different startups. So I will pose just a request from my side. And so, how do you feel about that? How better combination it can be?
In my opinion, if there is a deadly combination out there, it's technology and management. I don't think there's any other. When you look at, because look, irrespective of where you go now, right? You just cannot ignore the fact and the importance of technology in that vertical. Whether you go in healthcare, whether you go into retail, whether you get into I'm talking about as an MBA graduate, right? As an MBA graduate, you can choose various. You have the flexibility to choose various career options.
Yeah, even doctors, they have like hospital management courses.
Hey, by the way, so rightly said. My wife, she was a practicing dental surgeon, and then she went into implantology. She did implant, dental implants and so on and so forth. But she was always passionate about running healthcare facilities. She did her master's in healthcare management.
Yeah, in Jaipur we have got a very good institute. Okay.
She did her master's in healthcare management, and she moved from practically becoming a doctor, and then she started managing large healthcare facilities. Right? So there's no dearth to the opportunities that the management graduates have. But yes, if you look at technology, coupled with MBA, I think it's a very, very, very strong.
This was always back there in my mind that if there is an institute like this having a management course, why can't it be collaborated with different?
No, like what kind of collaboration? It's already there.
So just like
you are in the system, you can always explore.
It's more about as we were thinking, like there should be brainstorming. There should be more interaction between them.
But who stops you?
So
who stops you?
It gets little bit. It should
Why
be organizational backup.
Why to formalize everything? There's no need to formalize everything.
This brings me to another point that I mentioned about your soft skills. Yeah. You don't need to formalize it, but if you inculcate the collaborative, tickle the collaborative senses of your brain, think about it. You put the innovation lab in place. An innovation lab that you put in place, bring that together with your technology colleagues, people who are in the engineering
You can
field,
always start a club.
right? When
You can always start a club.
you can always do that, right? Look, there is no limit to it. There's absolutely no limit to it. I was never a technology guy. I didn't know anything about technology. If I started knowing anything about technology, is attributed to all the engineers that work along with me. Those are the guys who basically taught me technology. I was a management grad as well. Just like you guys. If I know anything, whatever little bit I know about ASIC is because I used to sit with Jagan and learn a lot from him about ASIC. So I think it all happened, right? I mean, there is no there's no limit to what you can do if you collaborate in that space. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It was lovely. It was a lovely interactive session. If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to take it. If not, feel free to connect with me, LinkedIn, Insta, wherever I'm active. So yeah.
I think at least even if he goes back to his place, he can be always connected to virtual.
Yeah, virtual plan.
Yeah, virtual. We have so good facilities here. You can always.
And yeah, I mean, I make it a point that I come to Srinagar anyways.
Yeah.
Every 3 months.
Then it's
So
very good.
Feel free whenever you guys think I can add some value. I'll be happy to.
We'll be having some classes.
See, value addition is important. What you learn, what value you add to that important.
So like many students are confused between to choose they want to go into technical side or management side. Like what do you suggest? Like I'm also confused like which field I have to choose.
So we have both of you. Director sir is also here who has done his doctorate, and you are here who has an MBA graduate. So we want an opinion from both of you, which as an engineering graduate, which path we should choose.
I will, if you don't mind, if I will.
Yeah.
Yes. But I have a counter question to you. What is it that you love when you genuinely you do that and you feel so good about doing it? What is it that you like?
So both, sir. I'm working on a project technical. I'm very much interested in it. I'm also working as a coordinator, managing things. Like I like both of them, sir, and I'm confused what to do.
Okay, I will once again ask this question.
Do you think that as a teacher you don't manage? You don't do management?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, you do. Even as a student, you do a lot of management.
Yeah. In your normal life, you do a lot of management. When you grow, you have a family, you have kids. You realize how much multitasking you will have to in your life. I think it go back to the question. Find that if you've not been able to find it till now, find that one thing that when you do it or when you're doing it, you don't feel that you have to put a lot of effort in it because it kind of naturally flows through it, right? I mean, you love doing it. Like for example, my son, he's a 10-year-old, right? And he's a brilliant sketch artist. He sketches, right? At 10 years, he sketches beautifully. And he's like me, he's average when it comes to academics. I'm not saying I was average, and I'm probably trying to underplay. I was fairly okay. But I always feel that I'm not going to kind of force him to do something which he doesn't want to do, right? Because he's his creativity is at such free flow when he's actually doing what he loves to do that you just feel that this guy is delivering some phenomenal results. And trust me, all of us have that one area where we feel extremely confident and comfortable with our own self. Find that one area if you haven't been able to. And I believe it's a constant process. It doesn't happen from day one. Some of us are brilliant at something, and then we realize at a certain point in time that hey, this is
priorities and likings, they keep on changing in life. Yeah, nothing is stable. So remember, it's all dynamic. With time, Everything changes.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Your likes, your dislikes, your passions.
And I believe that when when you're in this journey, when you're in this, when you're a student, and I think that's where it is the most at its most difficult stage, right? Because you're going through this, you're going through this, a storm in your head, which basically is making things a lot more complicated, right? I'm studying this, I like this as well, I like this as well. Right? I like practically everything, right? But over a course of time, you will be able to identify with something which you're extremely comfortable with, right? And once you're able to do that, believe me, if you walk that path, you'll realize that your success becomes so much more enjoyable. As they rightly said, somebody had said that if you make your passion your job, you'll not have to work another day in your life. Right? And it is so true. It is so true. Probably that's what made me stick for the last 14 years. Because I love what I do. Right? I love traveling. I love engaging with people. I love understanding different businesses, right? And utilizing or trying to basically what I've learned in Africa, probably maybe look at exploring it and see, hey, can this be implemented somewhere else, right? In the management aspect, right? So,
I think you can sit here and I just narrate one incident in I think in 1999. I traveled to Bangkok. That was under some Asian Productivity Organization. We have few member countries, and India is one of the country. Headquarters is in Japan. So I was also selected under the program. I was doing my doctorate at NIT Delhi. I was at NIT Delhi. So I got a chance to be there for 15 days. There every day, morning hours till lunch, we used to have a lot of classes, lot of theory classes, lot of practical sessions. Afternoons were kept for the industrial visits. So almost every afternoon we used to visit some industries, and I came to very different kind of things there. In India, jewelry it's a family business. All of us know. But there, in Thailand, it is an industry. One day I visited one industry where more than 1,000 people were working, making jewelry. Can you imagine? In India, we don't have. I don't think that I've not at least heard of any brand which has a very big industry, jewelry industry. They are from 18 carat to 20, 24 carat gold they used to make different. Right? Big industry. Melamine, that's a big. That's original brand is Thailand, Bangkok. It's different. All countries they have different culturally. They have different.
So, interestingly enough, when I came to Srinagar, I saw from Delhi for a day, and there's a gentleman who he was a young guy, and brilliant designer. Right? He has his own design studio that he started. All boutique, 4 or 5 people working in that design studio, and he's done some really great work. And when you look at cultural impact, and I'm talking about cultural impact, that it is not just about international cultural impact. You realize that the cultural impact, even when we go at the grassroots of our own country, you realize that every 150 to 200 kilometers, right, there is a different culture that exists. And the more, as entrepreneurs, as business people, as leaders in whatever space we are, the more we are able to be conscious about those impacts, the more success you can actually deliver within your organization. And ours is a country which is diverse. I don't think there is any other country out there on the planet which is as diverse as we are. and I think that also is also the power that we have, right? Because it allows. You see, I mean, sometimes I get puzzled, right? When you look at the country as a whole, you look at the creativity that is out there itself in our arts and craft, from top to bottom, from right to left. You realize that everything is so different, right? So I think the more we are able to harness those impacts, I think the more we will continue to be a lot more successful. Even if you look at the valley, you'll realize that the cultural impact of the way things are done in Srinagar is probably not the same way that they would be done in so forth, or even in Jammu. So I think, but I do hope and I do wish that and you guys can make that difference, right? Because you're at the stage where you can help people to be a lot more professional. We lack that. Yeah, we lack that. Professionalism is something that we.
That is why still we are not system. It's not a system. System should never be person dependent. System should work even if somebody is not there. System should work. That's why IIT is our system.
IIT is a system.
Absolutely is our system. So I've seen there because I have been a student there. I've seen there if somebody will leave the the light on in his room, he will get a bill not stick to on his door. Students themselves they watch each other. No, you will not find any wastage there. You will not find any wastage in mess there. You will not find any wastage in wastage of water in bathrooms. But that's a system. Culture.
Proper systematic manner.
Yeah, systematic. They care. They care. They are aware. They are aware about the facilities which are being provided to them. They know the cost. Huge cost we are incurring on everything. Sitting in this room, so many lights on, and everything is costly.
And trust me, that is my biggest problem when I look at the valley. That is my biggest. That is my biggest. That is my biggest problem that I wish I was able to bring in a little bit of change, or any of you guys. When I was coming here, I had because I had an flight that I had to take.